So we are recording, and welcome. This is our 20th webinar episode. So it's been 20 weeks already. We started this back at the end of April, and it's now coming up on the middle of August. So um, it's an exciting time to be doing this stuff, and it's an exciting time to be talking about it. We are going to be talking today about understanding rifle actions, and what that means is basically how the rifle gets a bullet or a shell into the chamber, and then you shoot it. So these are the physical mechanisms of how they move. How you cycle a round of ammunition into where it fires and out the end of the barrel. So that's what a rifle action is. Just to reiterate what Kraig said, Kraig and I are going to be talking about this. My name is James Burnham. I'm the Hunting and Angling Recruitment, Retention, and Reactivation Coordinator for the state of Minnesota. That's a long title that just basically means I'm here to get more people out hunting and fishing. And I'll let my Northwoods spiritual guru, Kraig Kiger, introduce himself.
So I'm Kraig Kiger. I'm the State Shooting Sports Program Administrator, almost as long as James' title. But I get to teach people how to shoot guns and bows and teach firearm safety, learn to hunt programs. And it's that time of year. I mean, we are on the edge of bear season. Baiting is going to start here in 2 days. I had a visitor on, was it Sunday evening, Monday morning, about 4 o'clock, probably about 350 pounds. Grabbed my garbage can and drug it along. So we had some excitement at the house.
And Kraig, by visitor, you mean a bear visitor?
It was a very big black bear. He was almost as tall as the garbage can. And so that was exciting because I got to go and clean up all the trash and move the garbage can indoors so he couldn't come back. And so far he hasn't been back. So
excellent.
But yeah, hunting season is just around the corner. It's kind of like Christmas for grown-ups. I mean, I'm so excited to get out there and do that.
And for those of you that are, we'll be talking about this in more detail next week, but the very first season opener for hunting is September 1st, and that is for mourning doves. And our talk next week is going to be mourning doves. So when Kraig says that we're on the cusp of hunting, he's not kidding. I mean, it's literally right around the corner. I know I've been getting more practice with my bow coming up. There's a lot that's about to start happening, so it's a great time to be outside. It's a great time to be talking about this stuff. But let's get into the meat of today's discussion, which is understanding rifle actions. Really quickly, the way that Kraig and I are going to do this, we're going to go through a quick slideshow that just kind of lays out what the 5 most common rifle actions are, and we're going to talk about them very briefly. And then we're going to end our slideshow and just talk through what those actions mean. We have firearms that we're going to demonstrate how those actions work so that you can see them on screen, and we can get a little bit more interactive on what we're talking about with this stuff, and literally show you how they work and how they operate. So our 5 most common rifle actions, basically, Kraig, what would you say, 99% of what's out there?
Oh, easily. The bolt action, the semi-auto action, the lever, the pump action, and the brake action, and they've all got their own uniqueness and use category. So we'll get into those as we start talking about them more, but why don't we go ahead and we'll start telling them.
Yeah. So and we're gonna trade off on this a little bit. So I'll let Kraig talk about the bolt action, and then I think I'm taking the next one.
So this is a bolt action rifle, and in my opinion, it's probably the most useful action. It's strongly built, it's easy to clean and maintain, and the accuracy is, far superior to many of the other ones that we have. It can be used for hunting from stands or still hunting in the stalking game. it's probably the one that I have the most time with. And so that's a bolt action. You can see the little handle up there, and we'll have one to demonstrate here in just a little bit.
And it's really remarkable because this is out of the 5 common actions that we're talking about here, with the exception of the brake action, which is a little less common. This bolt action platform, there's been modernizations in the materials that are used, in some of the design that's been used, but really, that fundamental design principle has been in place since 1896, 98.
Yep.
And so this is a tried and true platform. It works really well. It's very safe. What Kraig was saying about the ease of maintenance and care. And we'll show you when we get into the physical manipulation of these things, but that bolt, you can completely remove it from the barrel and you've got a nice clean open barrel. It makes it easy to clean. It makes it easy to check for obstructions. It is a very, very user-friendly platform. So we'll move on to the next one. This is the semi-auto action, and I'll talk a little bit about this one, and Kraig's going to jump in if I misspeak or say anything incorrect. The semi-automatic, and when you're new to firearms, there's a lot of confusion in the nuance between what's an automatic weapon and what's a semi-automatic weapon. And the semi-automatic weapon means that you pull the trigger, the gun goes off, a bullet comes out of it, and when you release the trigger, there's another round in the chamber. So it's ready to shoot again without you doing anything else. You still have to pull the trigger a second time to shoot that follow-up round. A fully automatic weapon, you hold the trigger down and it's just bang, 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 bang. And those are not legal and definitely not what we deal with in the hunting realm on any regular basis.
It's going to be your higher end law enforcement, your military. Civilian populations have to go through a very thorough background check and apply for a license and pay a $200 fee to the federal government. So they could own one, but it's not common.
That's a great point, Kraig. Yeah, they are legal. There's just a lot of hoops to get there. So they're not very common, and they're not great for hunting.
No.
Honestly, because as those bullets are coming out of the barrel, it's harder to control. And when you're hunting, you're trying to make a precision shot with the most accuracy that you can have, and they're usually not good for that. So a semi-auto, you pull the trigger, a bullet comes out, and another round is cycled. And there are different mechanisms for how that happens, but for all intents and purposes, the gun is using the energy of that bullet leaving the gun to bring in the next round. Whereas with a bolt action, it's you physically manipulating the gun to bring in the next round. Or with any of the other actions that we're going to talk about, you have to physically do something to bring that next round into the chamber.
Yep.
These can be really good because they, again, you don't have to do anything else for that next round to be there. They can be really quick for a follow-up shot if you need it. Because it uses some of that energy to bring the next bullet into the chamber, it can have less felt recoil. So you're actually taking some of that energy that would go into your shoulder away from the gun and using it to bring another round into the chamber. And so, if you've got recoil sensitive shooters, these can be good for those. Lately, over the last 10, 15 years, we've got 2 semi-autos that are presented here. The one on the right side of the screen is kind of the classic semi-auto woods gun. It's exactly the gun that I have. It's just a little fancier. And then the one on the left is a more modernized platform. And those are increasingly popular. The modern platforms, those modern sporting rifles, there's a lot of customization that you can have with those. There have been a lot of people that have been through the military recently, and they're very familiar with that platform, so they gravitate towards them. They can be really good. They can be really good hunting guns in the right caliber and used the right way. So. but they
Okay.
but they fundamentally do the exact same thing. They look a little different, but they fundamentally do the exact same thing. All right. Lever action. I'll take this one too,
Okay.
Craig. The lever action, this is your classic cowboy gun. You know, if you ever watched a John Wayne movie or a Clint Eastwood movie or, you know, Tombstone with Kurt Russell and Val Kilmer, you know, these are your lever guns. They were the first alternative. They were the first kind of next step from a bolt action gun where you could actually get some speed with the reload. So you crank the lever down, it ejects the bullet that you just shot, the shell casing of the bullet you just shot. It brings the next round into the chamber and you close it up. So you're physically manipulating that lever that's right underneath the wood of the handle, and that's what's bringing the bullets in. These are really great woods guns. The barrels tend to be a little shorter. They're very maneuverable. They can provide a very quick follow-up shot if you need it, and there's a lot of benefit to having these with you when you're out there. They come in a wide range of calibers. They're very useful. Another very tried and true platform that's been around since the late 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
All right, pump action. I'll turn it over to you, Craig.
So the manufacturers of firearms looked at a lot of duck hunters and pheasant hunters were using pump action shotguns, and they said maybe those hunters would like a pump action rifle, so that from rifle to shotgun it handled exactly the same way. It has a little bit more recoil than a semi-auto because you're not using that gas pressure to run the action. It's you manually sliding that forearm back and forth to eject the empty and pick up the next round. When I was a kid just starting out hunting, one of the neighbor dads hunted with a pump action deer rifle, and it was very accurate. It was very, very useful on a lot of the different hunts that we went on. And if you're a pump action shotgun shooter, a pump action rifle might be a nice way for you to get into rifle shooting. Anything else you want to add on that one?
I would just say it just adds a little element of a little quirky element of cool to deer camp. You know, like when you come into a hunting environment, there's always, you know, everybody's always kind of silent, like, oh, what do you got over there? And so when somebody shows up with a pump action rifle, it's usually like there's usually a little murmuring of like, ooh, all right. Ooh. So
And that is so true. I mean, every deer camp I've ever been in or elk camp, there's always the show and tell. You know, what did you bring to hunt with? And you get a chance to talk about yours. The single shot action, and I've got a couple of them here that I'm going to demonstrate, is a great way for a new shooter to start out, because they've got one bullet in the gun, and they have to manually open the action, take the shell out. The one that's pictured here is called a falling block. So that little lever comes down, the silver part that you see drops down and ejects the shell out. You place one round in there into the chamber and close the lever back up, which closes the action, and the gun's ready to shoot again. And this is a great little woods gun. It's fairly short. You know, one shot for stalking is probably what you're going to get. And I sat in the stand with this rifle. It's got a very large diameter scope, so early morning and towards sunset, I can gather as much available light to my eye. But that's a really fun gun to shoot, and it just a different option.
yeah, and these are frequently, like Craig said, often a single shot with a new shooter. It's a good way to go because it forces them to make one very good shot, right?
Mm-hmm.
It takes away their ability to just pop, 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 right? Like they've got to focus on that one shot. It's a very safe action to have. It's very nice when you're hunting with somebody with a break action, because when that thing's unloaded, they break it open and you can tell from dozens of feet away that that gun is safe and is not operable. So it's
Yep.
reassuring on the other, like, not only is it good for a new shooter, but it's good for people with new shooters, because if you train them to break that thing open to make sure that it's safe, everybody around them knows that that's a safe gun, and they're not.
Mm-hmm.
It eliminates the constant questioning of, is that gun unloaded? Is that gun unloaded? What are you doing with that gun? Which happens frequently with new shooters. All right. So those are the 5 actions. That's our slideshow. We got through it fairly quickly. Craig's going to get up and get a couple of his props. If you want more information, please come and check out what we've got for upcoming webinars. You can find that if you do a search for outdoor skills on our DNR website.
There.
And our summer series is coming to an end as of the end of this month. But we are going to be starting our fall series starting September 1st and going through the fall. So a lot of hunting material coming up. Over the summer, we've been dealing a lot with a lot of fishing stuff. But as we transition into the fall, we're definitely going to be talking about, we've got dove hunting coming up, pheasant hunting coming up. Benji is going to be talking about small game hunting with air rifles. I mean, there's just a lot of material that's coming up, and we're really excited about it. So check it out and stay informed. This is how you can reach either Craig or myself. Email is definitely the best for me because we're still working from home for the most part, and my office phone has not been dealt with in a long time, so I'm not even sure you can leave a message with it anymore. But reach out via email. We're always happy to answer questions, point folks in the right direction, and get people out there to do this stuff. So with that being said, I'm going to kill our slideshow, and we're going to get into the show and tell, the visual aids. I really, Craig, I really think we missed an opportunity. We could have shown up with sleeveless shirts because this is the gun show. I think but it's not official uniform code, so I didn't want to damage state property with this shirt, but I do think we missed a chance there. So why don't we walk through the actions kind of in the order that we laid them out? So we're going to talk first about the bolt action, then we'll go to the semi-auto, then we'll go to the lever. And those are kind of like, those 3 by themselves are the majority of what's out there. The pump action and the brake action, they're out there, but they're definitely not as common. And so we want to start with the one that I think most people are going to think about when they think about a deer rifle or a hunting rifle, and we'll start with the bolt action.
Okay. Did you bring yours up, or you want me to use mine?
That's on you.
Okay. So we have a bolt action rifle. So here's the handle that you would raise up, pull it to the rear. That's going to eject the shell as you push it forward and lock it down. The gun is now ready to be shot again. This one has a manual safety that you have to slide forward to be able to shoot, slide it back to be on safe. It's got a nice 3x9 scope on it, and very accurate rifle. I would use this in a stand. I would use it stalking on edges of fields because it's going to be the most accurate rifle for a longer distance shot. But in the deer stand, I've shot deer at maybe 20 yards with a bolt action rifle, and it worked just fine. So that's the bolt action.
Craig, can you show them how to remove that bolt so that we were talking about, to make it easier for cleaning and maintaining?
Sure. So on this particular one, you hold the trigger back after you open the action, and the bolt just slides out into your hand. You could clean this by running a rod from the chamber towards the muzzle, pushing all the dirt and unburnt powder and residue out the end of your gun. You really don't want to push that back into the action of the gun because that could gum things up. and then you just reinsert it. And that's back together. So that's probably the easiest one to take down, maintain. You can run your brushes, your patches. Very, very, very light oiling of the rails that the bolt's going to slide on. You don't want to use WD-40 comes to mind. You don't want to use a penetrating oil on there. You want to use just a light gun oil. You don't want to encourage dust to migrate into the action of your gun.
And that gun has a magazine that removes from it, correct? Because
This one does, yep.
Some bolt actions will have a magazine that comes out and some won't.
And so on the magazine,
show them how to pull that magazine out one more time.
There's a little button here on the back. You push the button, slide the magazine out. And this one would hold 5 rounds. There are some that you would load the rounds individually through the open action. And some of them will have a floor plate that you push the button and the plate will open up and dump the rounds out. And it just depends on what price level you're comfortable in spending. The more features it has, the higher price you're gonna probably pay for that. So that's the bolt action.
Excellent. I will move on to the semi-auto, and I'll just duck out of frame here for just a second. This is my personal deer rifle, one of them. It is a semi-auto, and the thing that's tricky about semi-auto, sometimes you'll see this orange plastic bit. This is called a barrel flag or a chamber flag, and it's basically just, it's a visual aid to help everybody know that there's nothing in this. There's no bullet in that chamber. There's not. You can see it's got a end on it. It sticks up inside the barrel. If there was a bullet or a shell lodged in this chamber, I couldn't fit it in. So it's just a way to, and you'll see these at gun ranges a lot of times, but it's just a way to visually show this chamber is empty. There's nothing in here, because unlike the bolt action, I can't take this apart. There's nothing that I can take off the receiver, which is this main area here, to indicate that there's a bullet in there or not. And again, that's when you're dealing with firearms, always remember, you know, the cardinal rules. Treat every firearm as if it's loaded. Always be aware of where the muzzle is pointing. Always point it in a safe direction. Be aware of what is your target and beyond it, and keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to fire. So, you know, that's super important with semi-autos, because they're not always clearly empty. Unlike every single one of these other actions, they can appear to be empty and there's still something in there. So that's one drawback with the semi-auto. The other drawback with the semi-auto is that it can be a little harder to clean. So when Kraig took that bolt out of his bolt action rifle, you know, you can see down that barrel, you can clean it really easy. It's easy to maintain. Semi-autos can be a little bit harder to clean. They can be more finicky. This gun specifically, if that chamber gets a little dirty, it will start failing to eject shells. And so there's a special brush that I have to get in there and brush it out and make sure that it's clean. But this gun, it has a detachable magazine. There's going to be a loud click. I press this button and the magazine comes out. It holds 4 rounds. And so I can do 4 rounds plus 1 in the chamber. And I'm ready to go. And it's got a scope on it, but it also has iron sights. This is, you know, this is a bread and butter woods gun. It's a shorter barrel. It's a little heavy. So if I know I'm going to be doing a lot of walking, I'm not going to take this. I'm going to take something else. But this is a great rifle. I've taken a lot of deer with it. It's got sentimental value to me because this was the first one that I bought with my own money. So this is, that's why I've still got it around. But yeah, this is a semi-auto. I pull the trigger, a bullet comes out, and a bullet's ready to go right away afterwards. So Fun to shoot. And again, that taking that kinetic energy from firing around and using it to bring in the next round, it takes some of that energy away from what's going to go into my shoulder. So it's a little gentler to shoot as opposed to a bolt action, which is, or any of these other actions, all of that energy is just going straight into your shoulder. So if it's a big caliber shell, that can get old shooting it.
And I've had semi-autos all the way up to a 338, which is a elk moose cartridge, and it was fairly pleasant to shoot. I mean, the weight of the gun, the action of the gun helped absorb a lot of that felt recoil. So a semi-auto, I mean, I'd use it woods hunting. I'd use it on fairly short distance, under 200 yards. It would be fine accuracy for that. So
Yep.
what's the next action we had?
The next action is going to be the lever action, and I got that one as well. So this is my old-timey cowboy gun. It's not that old. It's from, I think the manufacture date on this is 76, so it's not super old, but old enough. This is, again, we've got a shorter barrel, so this is a good woods gun. You'll see that I don't have a scope on this, and that's because I'm going to be taking shorter distance shots with this gun. It's lighter, it's more evenly balanced than the semi-auto that I just had. So if I've got to carry it, I'm going to be like, if I'm doing a deer drive, which is kind of a wonderful little thing up here in the upper Midwest, where you have a bunch of people thumping through the brush and pushing deer out in front of you, I'm carrying this gun instead of my semi-auto. Not having a scope, it's easier to pick up a target with the open sights. The distances that I'm going to be shooting are going to be shorter. So this gun is really good for that. You can see, like I mentioned, you can see that when the lever is down and open like that, the chamber is open. It's very easy to tell that this gun is not in a fireable condition. So it's really easy to tell. So you'll notice when I picked it up that the chamber was open. I've checked all of these guns before we came on to do that, but the chamber's open. So whenever I'm not carrying it around and not ready to shoot it, that chamber's open so that anybody who's looking at it can tell that gun's not going to operate without somebody touching it. Lever actions can be a little tricky, especially older lever actions. This model does not have the standard crossbar safety or a tang mounted safety. Doesn't have any safety whatsoever, really. But when I pull this forward, you can see that hammer is in the back position. So this thing is ready to shoot. And so if I wanted to not have it be ready to shoot, I physically have to put my thumb on the hammer and pull the trigger and ease it down. And now it won't shoot. If I pull that trigger, it's not going to pull the hammer back. More modern lever actions do have either a safety right behind the trigger called the crossbar safety, or they'll have a tang mounted safety, which is up here that you operate with your thumb. Mm-hmm. That allows you to have an additional level of safety. But if there's a bullet in the chamber and a deer's coming by, I need to physically pull that hammer back, and now it's ready to shoot.
And in the quietness, that click can be the loudest noise. So you have to really practice bringing that hammer rearward as quietly as you can.
Yep. And you'll notice that some models, this one has it, where you can pull it back halfway, and that's kind of the safety of this gun. So I can pull this trigger and it's not moving that hammer forward. And this is where the phrase half-cocked comes in. Mm-hmm. You don't want to go off half-cocked. Well, if you go off half-cocked, you're not going to be going very far because the hammer's not dropping. So I've got to pull it past that first click down to the second click. And now if I pull the trigger, that hammer will come up and fire around. Different model of lever actions work slightly different. You'll see that when I open this one up, the chamber is accessible on the side here. So the spent shells will come out the side. Some lever actions, the Winchester 94s, they come out the top. So this top slides back and it ejects the shells. So that affects the kind of scope mounting that you could do with these guns. You can still mount a scope on those, but they tend to be cantered off to the side.
Yep.
So that you can still operate the firearm. Different manufacturers load them differently. So this has a side gate on it, and so that's where I push the bullets in. I'll push them in this side gate, and they'll stack up like a train in this bottom tube magazine, right, from head to tail, head to tail, head to tail. Some manufacturers, you can unscrew the top of this tube magazine and pull them all out at once, and that's kind of a nice safety feature for a lever action that you're looking for. This one does not. I have to cycle the action if I want to eject shells from that magazine, and that can be a little dicey because your finger automatically wants to hit that trigger as you're cycling ammunition. And so if you're working with a lever action that you have to cycle the ammunition to get rounds out, grab the lever with all 4 of your fingers and work that action. And it keeps your index finger completely away from that trigger. And that's the safest way that I know how to do it. Craig, maybe you've got a different trick.
That's excellent advice, James. One of the things that I learned from my hunting mentor, my dad, was you'd lay your hunting jacket down and eject the shells into your jacket, because when you just start running that lever back and forth, they're going to go out in their normal path. And normally we have some snow on the ground during deer season up here in northern Minnesota, and you can lose a half a box or a quarter box of ammunition really quick with unloading that rifle. So like he showed me, you just kneel down next to your hunting jacket and eject the shells into the jacket, and then you can pick them up and reuse them later that day. As James said, those rounds set nose to tail, excuse me, and you want to use a flat or a round nose bullet in that particular gun, and most of the manufacturers are only going to manufacture flat or round nose bullets because we don't want the pointy end of one bullet resting on the primer of the next one, because you could have a chain reaction. So round nose or flat nose bullets only.
Now and that's one of the reasons why these guns are typically for, back in the day, maybe 100 yards, maybe a 100-yard shot with this, and it's because those bullets, because they're designed to sit nose to tail in the tube magazine under the barrel. They've got those round or flat noses. They're not as aerodynamic as
Correct.
a bolt action or another caliber. Modern engineering and materials have changed that a little bit. There are some rounds out there that have soft rubber or polymer tips on the very top, and it's allowed those bullets to be more aerodynamic and go out farther. So these days, in the right hands, with the right ammo, with the right practice, you could probably use this at 200 yards if you practice with it. But this is the gun that I take if I know I'm going to be thumping through brush and carrying it a long way. This is the gun I'm taking, and you can see I don't have a strap on it because it's light enough that I can carry this comfortably in my hands, and I don't need that strap. My semi-auto has a strap because I don't want to carry that thing in my hands for a long way. So different use, different application, different firearm.
If you were going to scope that off, if you remember the slideshow, there was a picture of a lever action, and I've got a 1 to 5 power scope, very low magnification, because your shots are going to tend to be closer, and you don't want to look through your scope and see a forest of brush blocking out your reticle, your crosshair that you're going to try and find to put on the deer. I have saw a few guys that have put like a 3x9 long range scope on there, and it's like, if that magnification helps you, makes you feel better, I don't have a problem with it. But a more common scope would be a 1 to 5, 1 to 6 power. Keep it relatively low.
Nice.
What's the next one?
Kraig, you've got the next one. We're gonna do the pump.
Okay, so I don't have a pump action deer rifle, but a pump action, like I said before, works the same as a pump action shotgun. You pull back on the fore end, that ejects the shell out, and you pull it forward, it brings the next round in. Just like on the bottom of James 30-06 semi-automatic, they would have a box magazine that would go into the bottom of the gun. It doesn't have a tube magazine. It has a box magazine that fits in there. It's going to have the same controls as your pump action shotgun would, with a slide release and the safety. But if this is your shotgun that you'd use for turkey hunting, grouse hunting, duck hunting, pheasant hunting, maybe a pump action rifle would work well for you for that. Very reliable. You can get them with open sights, or this particular one is a slug gun that we use for our learn to hunt class. And so it had a scope mount on it. So that's why the scope is on this one, but it's for shooting. This one is designed to shoot copper slugs, and that spins the copper bullet and makes it more accurate. I would say a pump action rifle, 200-yard gun, maybe a little bit further if you had to stretch it. But yeah, just keep it simple, match what you've already got, and you'll have a very usable firearm for matching what your shotgun already does. Okay, so that's the pump action. Anything that you can think on that one?
No, pumps they're really solid fire. I mean, all of these actions are super reliable. The semi-autos can be a little finicky if they get gummed up or they're not cleaned very well, but all of these actions are super reliable. Whatever action you decide to go with, the best thing that you can do is practice with it, know how it works, be comfortable with it, be able to break it down if you need to, and it's going to do what you need it to do.
Right. Okay, so the hinge action.
Yep.
Next. So what I have here is a hinge action shotgun, meaning that you push the lever and it hinges in the middle. You can load your ammunition in the gun. This one happens to be an over-under. It's a combo gun with a shotgun on the top and a rifle barrel on the bottom. So you've got two triggers on this one to decide which barrel you want to fire first. It's got a slide safety on the back. But like James said in the PowerPoint, if that young person or new person opens their action like this, it's easy to tell that that gun is safe for them to be transporting it, whether they're walking to their stand or, if they're going to climb up their deer stand, they're going to take their empty gun, they're going to put a haul line on it and bring the gun up to the stand with that haul line. And so that's a hinge, and you can get them in actually a side-by-side. I've seen those used more on the African hunting trips. There are a few combination like rifle over rifle, but they tend to get a lot more money. But you can get a single barrel hinge action where you just slide one rifle shell into it. And some of them might have a hammer, like on the 30-30, you have to cock that hammer to be able to shoot it. I can't stress enough safety with a hammer safety style gun. When you're out in the deer stand, you're usually wearing some big mitts or large gloves to keep your hands warm, and that hammer can slide off that wet glove. So be very, very careful when letting that hammer down to the safe position because the shot wasn't presented. So that's the hinge action rifle. And then the picture of the other one in the book was the falling block rifle. So this little lever drops this silver piece down. I can slide one round in. It's got a Tang safety on it. slide it up, lock it into place. And this is a fairly short barreled rifle. Um, it carries really nice. My wife's used it. I've used it. Um, it's just a fun little gun, something different to take with you into the woods. So those are the 5 action types. Um, Caliber choices run the full gamut from a rimfire shell like a 22 or 22 Magnum, all the way up to your largest center fires. Uh, your deer hunting, bear hunting calibers are going to be anything from a 243 up through kind of endless. I've seen guys carrying very large caliber guns in the woods. Um, Deer aren't that tough an animal to bring down, but a center fire has the priming compound in the center of the rear of the case, where a rim fire has it around the edge of the rim. And those aren't legal for deer hunting in Minnesota, just the center fires are. Uh, so that's the 5 different actions. Been kind of watching to see if there's any questions coming up, and
Yeah.
a couple of nondescript questions. We are going to be doing a duck hunting series,
Yep.
and that'll be coming September, I think,
Yep.
for just before duck season starts.
Yep. And that's also going to be at noon. That's and Benji answered that in the Q&A, September 22nd, for our upcoming fall series. We do have a question, Craig, and I'm going to turn this one over to you. Does 22 ammo expire? And they follow up with, I have 22 ammo that's probably 30 years old.
You know, as long as it's been kept cool and dry, there's really not a shelf life on it. I've shot some very, very old ammo, and if it's as old as you say it is, it might have collector value. If it's in an original Winchester or Remington box, that might be something that somebody would be willing to pay a fair amount of money because of the collector value, full box, original packaging type thing. But I'm familiar with sometimes when you're shooting a rimfire, you get a failure to fire, a misfire. And it's because the priming compound didn't get spread all the way around the rim of the case. A lot of times, if you take that cartridge, give it a quarter turn, put it back in, now you've got priming compound underneath the firing pin, and the shell will fire. And I see that with brand new manufactured ammo. So it's just something that you can try out.
Okay. Well, we've kind of gotten through the end of our demonstration of the actions. If there are other questions that are out there, please put them in the Q&A. We'll be happy to entertain them. If you have questions about, when should I take what, like what's best for X, Y, or Z, we'll be happy to try to answer those. Honestly, the best thing that you can do, if you have a firearm at home, and it's, I guess, Craig, you and I have talked about this before, kind of our minimum caliber for hunting in Minnesota, for hunting big game, so deer, bear, etc. Our minimum calibers for deer we've talked about is about a 243. So
Right.
if you've got anything from a 243 up, and you're going to be fine for everything in Minnesota, for anything that you will likely go out and get.
Yep.
Now, if you draw an elk tag, A, call me, but B, you might not want to use a 243 for an elk, but if you're putting in for an elk tag, you probably already know what you're using.
Well, and a lot of new shooters are going to be recoil sensitive. So that 243 is kind of the entry mark, low recoil, powerful enough for a deer. Stepping up to like a 308 or 30-06, you've opened up a whole new world of hunting opportunities. And if you've got your granddad's 30-30 or great grandfather's 30-30 sitting in the closet in the gun cabinet, take it out and use it. It's going to be a low recoil. It's going to be plenty of power for a deer. The number of deer killed with a 30-30 rifle in Minnesota is probably, hundreds of thousands of deer, because it's been such a widely used. I did see a couple new questions pop up.
Yep. What is the
One
legal age for hunting?
Well, 10 years old would be the youngest that's allowed in Minnesota.
Okay.
And they can hunt with a parent or guardian at their side. So sharing the stand with you, you're in immediate physical control of that youth. At 12 years old, they need to be in immediate verbal control. So they could set in a stand like directly across the trail from you. And if I got to say, James, we're not going to shoot that deer, and this is why, I can have verbal control over that new hunter. At 14, the state says they're old enough that they can hunt on their own with their parents' permission. So now you could sit on one corner of the field and you could put them on the other corner of the field, but they've had 2 to 4 years of training right with you. And so 10 years old, they can go out and they can get their own license, they can shoot their own deer, and it's the parents' job. I've had people say, really? The parents get the opportunity to share that safety message with them and how to carry that firearm and when it's safe to load that firearm. Um, just because James and I are certified instructors, we're the guys that are going to sign the certificate when they're old enough. But you can start laying down those um, safe firearms handling at an early age. People have asked what I think is the youngest age, and I started my nephew at 5 shooting a 22. And when he shot his first deer at 10, he said there really wasn't much to that. And I said, we've got 5 years of practice, you and I, you know, learning how to shoot that gun and handle it safely. And so he had a lot of practice that he kind of forgot about with uh, getting his first 6-point deer. He was super excited. He brought the antlers up to show me, and I kind of ushered him out the door that day, and he left his rack. I knew he had left it, and I put it on a nice walnut plaque, and he has it up in his house, in his bedroom now. So it's just something that he can remember that day and look up on the wall and see, you know, see that rack and remember what it was like. There's a question here on cleaning barrels, and whatever gun cleaning solution that you can find. I'm not going to mention any specific brands, but I would apply that to the barrel and let it set for a while so that things soften up in there. I would take a brush of the appropriate size and agitate that after it sat for a little bit. And then I would start with the patches, and I would start running patches through it to get all of the gunk out of the barrel. And then I would finish up with a clean patch and a light coating of oil. And just, I tell people all the time, think about cooking with a cast iron skillet. After we're done, we clean it up, we put a light coating of oil on it so it doesn't rust. And that's the same thing you're going to do with your firearm barrels. Put that light coating of oil in there, um, and then season the barrel with that. Uh, a light coating of oil on the external metal parts. And I wouldn't recommend oil on the wood unless it was like a furniture oil. Um, I've actually broken into the wife's cleaning supplies and used some Pledge or Old English type oils to wipe down the wood and give it a nice gloss. The synthetic stock guns that we showed, you just worry about your metal parts, and the plastic doesn't need too much care. Got a comment from they have a 30-30 Marlin lever action. Been using it for years. Just like to see what else is available and understand the differences. They said thank you. If you get a chance to go to a gun show or a gun shop and just talk to the guys behind the counter. I sold guns for a number of years at one of our local gun shops, and that was the whole reason we were there, is to talk guns with potential customers. You get a chance to see different things, how they work, and maybe you're going to find the one that fits you better than anything else has fit you, and they're going to make a sale that day. So they really like talking guns. And we got a question here from Dan. What would be a good gun caliber for size 10 and older starting out deer hunting? You know, a 10-year-old is going to be a little recoil sensitive. Uh, are they 10 this year? So they're going to be hunting their first season this fall. I'd get them out shooting a 22 as much as possible. And, you know, if you've got a deer rifle caliber at home, there's ammunition choices out there called reduced recoil. And the 5-year-old nephew I talked about, I bought him some 270 managed recoil. And we went out and he would shoot a box of 22 shells and 1 or 2 rounds from the 270, and it didn't bother him at all. If you want to buy a new gun for that new hunter starting out, maybe a 243. Like James and I said before, it's 85 to 100 grain bullet, and there's not going to be a lot of felt recoil there. I would say a bolt action, because it's going to be something, excuse me, that you can use for a long, long period of time. And they're probably going to be able to pass it down to, you know, their kids someday. And if you take care of a firearm, I've had firearms that go all the way back to a great great grandfather, and they're still as useful today as they were in his day. They're just older, and you got to take a little bit of care of them, and they'll last a long, long time.
So
Okay.
I we're coming up on our time, but I just want to stress that you know, there's really, if you're interested in getting into hunting and you've never done it before, you know, there's really nothing preventing you from going out this fall if you have access to a firearm that'll make a good ethical shot and a place to go. Like Kraig talked about, you know, if you're 10 or 11, you don't need firearm safety to go hunting. You're in control. Like we expect you to be in control, be with a parent or a mentor, and that they're instilling safety practices with you, and that you're right next to them.
Mm-hmm.
If you are 12 or 13, even if you can't get into a firearm safety class this fall, and it may be tough to get into it because we're still dealing with backlogs from last year, there are options called apprentice hunter validation that you can check out. It doesn't cost anything, or maybe it's $1. It's something very small, and that basically gives you the opportunity to hunt under supervision of another licensed hunter and not need firearm safety. And that's for any age. It's for any age. You have 2 of those per season for your life. So so if I've never been hunting before and I want Kraig to take me out and I don't have time to get firearm safety, I can get apprentice hunter validation twice in my lifetime to go deer hunting with Kraig.
Mm-hmm.
And after those 2 times, we expect that you put in the legwork to get firearm safety certified. Now, if I want to come back and turkey hunt with Kraig, I can still get apprentice hunter validation for turkey hunting because I haven't used it for that specific game animal.
Actually, it's good for a calendar year. So you buy one, and it will take you all the way around the calendar. So anything that you would encounter during that calendar period, if I bought it for deer season, I could go out and pheasant hunt. I could turkey hunt in the spring on that same hunter validation. I don't have to buy another one.
Excellent.
And then when that anniversary date comes up, you have to purchase the next one, and that would take you again for a calendar year. So you could duck hunt, grouse hunt, small game, whatever you might. We had a really good point brought up here by one of our listeners, and he said to support your local gun club. I've been a life member of my gun club since 1980s, and there's a lot of really good, knowledgeable people out there that can help walk you through. maybe even find a mentor that could introduce you to some different actions and let you shoot them. Um, there's a lot of guys out there like James and I that don't mind giving a little bit of our time and talent to help someone new get started. And you know, we're not going to be able to do our Learn to Hunt this year in person because of the COVID restrictions. But you know, find somebody out there, a family member that hunts, and it's amazing when you say, "I'd like to learn to deer hunt," how that's going to open up a door of opportunities to you that you didn't know existed before. Because if someone comes, "Hey, I'd like to get started," um, they might have the equipment, they might have spare clothing that they can share with you and get you out there to get you excited enough to buy your own gun and buy your own equipment and become a lifelong participant. So great point. I think that's everything in the Q&A and the chat. Anything else in Q&A that you see?
No, I think that's it. And just to follow up on what we were talking about with the apprentice hunter validation. So, you know, you've got 2 years where you don't need firearm safety. You've got 2 years where you can get by with apprentice hunter validation. Starting at age 14, you can do a completely online firearm safety certification. So, you know, we're slowly getting back to where we can have in-person trainings, but if you need that firearm safety, you can get it completely online for 14 and above. So
Right.
there really shouldn't be anything. You know, firearm safety should not be preventing you from going out and hunting this fall if you're thinking about it. So just get on top of it. Start doing those classes now. It's between 16 to 18 hours worth of content. It's doable in a short period, but I would not save it for the night before because it's a little too much for that. But
Yeah.
just get on top of it. And yeah, starting next week we're talking dove hunting and with a guest speaker, and we're getting into it. So now's the time to be looking at this stuff.
Yep. Get out to a range, do some practicing, and you'll be ready for fall.
Excellent. Well, we're gonna stop the recording and see everybody next week. Have a wonderful day. It looks beautiful out there, and yeah, enjoy it. Get outside. It's a lot of fun.
Take care, everyone.
Bye now.